Hello, love. Welcome back to Cycle Codes. This mini audio series is a space for connection and curiosity, for us to share our own insights around cycle syncing and explore this rich topic together. I'm Martina.
I'm Kayla.
And we are so glad you're here. Before we jump into all of the juicy topics in today's episode, Kayla is going to lead us through a short meditation and handpan experience. So if you are in a place where you can get still, get centered, and close down your eyes, I invite you there now. If you're driving or doing dishes, do your best to connect in with the breath and the energy, and you can always come back to this experience later. Kayla, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, thank you. So, like Martina said, just find a comfortable position. If you're standing, breathe down into your beautiful feet. Just find the lowest part of your body. And just start to turn all of your awareness inward. Noticing the breath as it is. The places where the breath easily flows. And the places that maybe feel a bit more tight, contracted, rigid. Gently inviting the breath to just fluidly expand into those places with ease, creating more space, more depth. More connection. On your next inhale, gently allow your breath to get wide and full. And allow your exhale to be slow and soft as it brings you deeper down into the heart, maybe the belly, maybe even into your precious womb space. Just breathing into this stillness, noticing the energy of the body. No judgment. Maybe there's lots of energy. Maybe you're slower. Maybe there's emotion or feeling or thought. Just notice. Just gently settling down deep into the hips and the womb. Like a pebble falling from the surface of water down slowly to the bottom of a clear, crystal, cool river. Can you bring yourself fully here into the wisdom of your heart, the sensation of your body, the stillness of your womb? Keeping the eyes closed or soft, just take in this moment of stillness and silence. Knowing that there's nothing more to do, and you can just be and receive. When you're ready, gently opening the eyes and tuning back into our podcast series. Thank you for being here. we're so excited to talk to you more about our cycles, our seasons, and what cycle syncing is. Thanks, Martina.
Thank you, Kayla. That was beautiful. Always love an opportunity to drop in with you. And I'm really excited to talk today because at the time of recording this, we're just on the cusp of a zodiac change. Pisces season just emerged yesterday. Is that right? Yesterday? Yeah.
Yeah, yesterday or the day before, it kind of
Yeah.
depends.
So when you're listening to this, we'll be a few days into a new zodiac season. And what I think is really interesting when we talk about cycle work is that it's not just about the cycle in our bodies, in our womb. That really is a mirror of the greater cycles of our world and of our universe. And I'm curious your thoughts, Kayla, on how this cycle shift into a new season is feeling to you.
It's intense. It's really bringing me down deep. So we were in Aquarius, and I'm an Aquarius moon and rising, so I'm very like lovey and airy in that season. And so it's all up here. It's all about ideas. And when Pisces comes here, she brings her water and she invites us not just into like superficial water, but like deep oceanic depth water. So I'm really feeling this call to slow down even more, which is really frustrating sometimes because I feel spring coming. So I want to kind of start doing things, but I really know the wisdom right now is to slow down and just to get grounded in the fluidity of Pisces water, which is all about intuition, depth, connection, subconscious realms, dreams. So I am feeling a little bit um, like the invitation to come down and in, and that's really hard for my airy nature. So I'm really just trusting the process as I sink a little lower.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a powerful shift. I've been hearing from so many people that there's a lot coming up, just to things that are ready to be released have really been coming up in the last week or so. And I think that'll be really representative of the next few weeks at large. Pisces is really here to help us close out the zodiac cycle as a whole and get ready
Yeah,
for the fresh one, which kind of is the earth season we're in as well, right? We're really closing out that period of hibernation and beginning to emerge a little bit,
yeah.
like starting to feel the spark. Have you been feeling any spring stirrings yet?
Um, yeah, it's here in North Carolina, it's kind of easy. I mean, right now it's snowing, so no. But last week it was like 80 degrees. So there were like moments of like, oh my gosh, the sun is here, the warmth is here, blossoms are gonna start, and then, it got really cold again.
Yeah.
So there's push-pull happening, that ending and new beginning kind of swirling. It was really interesting that you brought up that Pisces is the 12th zodiac or the 12th sign in the zodiac. And this is an ending of like a collective cycle that we've been on. But being the last cycle, it is all about the subconscious realm and it contains every initiation that you've been through in all of the signs before it. So it's a really big tying up loose ends kind of moment. And you may feel this really pronounced or you may feel it more subtly. Kind of just depends on, your chart and your own body.
Oh, that's so good. I think back to where and who I was a year ago at this time and everything that has transpired. And if you're listening, I would just encourage you to really pause and think about like March of last year, like everything you've been through from March of 2024 until now, and what beautiful closure and lessons are available to us from that entire cycle. I'm so glad you brought that up because that feels really powerful. There's been so much change, so much evolving over the last year. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, and I think it's so easy, especially for women, to kind of feel like they're in the same place. Nothing has shifted, nothing's changed. I still have these issues, I still have this problem, I still have whatever. And when you do this kind of reflective, retrospective practice, you start to see even if you are At similar junctions, it's not the same. And you probably have shifted a lot, and there's a lot to celebrate in that. And I think it's really important for us to all celebrate ourselves because the world is already heavy and full of craziness.
Yeah. And that actually is, if we bring it down a little bit into our bodies, that is one of my favorite ways to use my menstrual cycle is as a period of reflection and processing cycles. And every single month, I have a practice where at a certain point in my cycle, I pause and I look at the goals I wrote down 3 weeks ago and what has shifted and really offer gratitude and acknowledgement and celebration for the small ways that we're evolving. Because day to day, you're so right. It's really hard to connect to that sometimes. And I think our monthly menstrual cycles offer that opportunity. The moon offers that opportunity. And seasonally, we get the chance to touch in about that. And it's powerful on all levels to experience.
Martina's getting over a little bit of a cough, so.
Lots coming up to be released. We'll try not to cough your ears off. So, Kayla, I'm curious to hear because one of my favorite things to do is to layer cycles on cycles. And this is something we do together in Lunar Living. We help really weave together internal cycles and external cycles. So, as we talk about this bigger external cycle happening with Pisces season and winter spring shifting, where are you at in your internal cycle and how is that playing into all of this energy?
I'm luteal, so I'm day 21, which means I have a shorter cycle, so I'm about to bleed in about 5 or 6 days. And this to me is really a turning inward. Like I'm deeply winter. I'm like starting to enter the cave and to just shut down and be still before the new cycle begins. And I really see that mirrored in it's literally snowing right now. So it's just like this invitation to just drop down, to get still, to make space for releasing and doing nothing, and taking in the wisdom of being and receptivity and being still. So with Pisces, that's very watery and very deep. And I feel that mirrored in that slowing down, that going deep, that going in. It's not an outward expression. Pisces is very internal. She's very go down, tune in, listen, receive, express from this place. So that I feel like that's what it is for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm also early luteal. I'm around day 19 right now. And this cycle has been kind of interesting because I was very ill for like 8 days. And I'm coming out of it now. And so typically right about now, I would also be starting to slow my pace to get more reflective and inward. And instead, I'm feeling this true emergence of energy because I have been very still for 8 days in healing mode and I'm now feeling better. So this cycle has been an interesting sort of shift in getting to respond to the uniqueness of every month, where we do, I'm feeling a lot of the detail oriented focus that I tend to get in my luteal phase. But so far, my energy and motivation and creativity is still feeling very high. So I'm kind of coasting with that and, really feeling the spark of spring starting to emerge, even though it's like -2 degrees where I live right now. Feeling that spark of spring and really holding on to that emergence of warmth because I'm really craving that. So I think less in the winter than I maybe normally would be, and just really honoring where that is right now. I love the mirror that you're experiencing, that symmetry sometimes really feels satisfying. And I'm also curious because I get this question a lot. How would you possibly experience this season differently if you were at a very different point in your cycle? Like, how do we hold the duality of like, I'm on day 8 of my cycle and I'm really in my inner spring and Pisces season and the moon and everything outside of me is asking us to slow down and go inward. Like, where does that duality, where's that held for you?
Yeah. Well, when I think of my luteal phase right now, like there is still that energy, probably because I have been still, because I have been in an internal winter. So I do feel what you were naming, maybe not as energetically as you, because I do still feel winter strong. Um, so for me, when the slowing down and everything, it's more creative. It's more, I'm just going to focus on like the things that feel easy to me and feed and nourish my internal place. And if I was in my follicular, so early, like day 7 to 10, or even ovulation, I may be feeling like more energy to like produce something and share my wisdom about how to slow down during this phase or how to work with the energy of Pisces. It would be a little bit more um, like my masculine side coming forward, my energetic like go-getter who's like, okay, let's analyze this and make some plans and structure around this. Whereas right now I'm really leaning into like the fluidness and just trying to become part of the season that's living inside of me.
Yeah.
That's how it's feeling for me.
Mm. Yeah, that's really beautiful.
I also think it's really cool that you're experiencing all of this energy. I mean, it's sad that you were sick for so long. But you are also a Pisces moon. So
Yeah.
I do feel like you're probably very more, like much more grounded in this energy internally. And so you have a lot of creativity that wants to blend with this energy.
Yeah, feels like my inspiration has just been like off the charts the last few days.
That
And
makes
in the
sense.
Aquarius season, I felt very ungrounded. Like had no idea where I was or where I was going. And now emerging from this illness where I've had a lot of physical rest and then this season shift, I'm really feeling the inspiration coming through, which is feeling refreshing.
Yeah, I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah. And now we get to channel it into this beautiful space together, which is
I
always fun
know.
when that works out.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, one thing I would love to dive into with you today is to really explore um, what is standing in the way of folks getting to connect in and embody living, in rhythm with their cycles. We talked last episode really about the medicine that's available when we tap into the wisdom of our bodies and the wisdom of the cycles at large. Like there's so much medicine there. So let's talk about why and how that medicine has been lost for many of us and what's hard about actually embodying that day to day. So that's a huge question. Is there anywhere you want to start with that?
There's a lot there, and I'm sure we're gonna just like weave and cycle and spiral around it. But I think one of the biggest things is the complexity of cycle syncing, cycle work, getting to know your cycle. For many of us, we didn't take classes regularly on hormones and how long our cycle is and the phases of our cycle and what that even looks like in our body, like how familiar are we with these places in our body. And that's societal conditioning, growing up. There's so much to unravel there. So it may feel, I know for me when I first started, it just felt overwhelming. Like, where do I start? I have no idea what half of these hormones are. I don't know, why do they fluctuate? What does that mean? I don't have time to sit here and, take a mini masterclass every day just to figure out what I need to eat or do. So where do I begin? I think there's a lot of overwhelm that happens for people. And people
Yeah,
are already overwhelmed. We don't want to add to the overwhelm.
yeah, it's so true. And, for a lot of us, we as adults are trying to reacquaint ourselves with our cycles for the first time. And sometimes it's not even that we weren't taught, like it's not even that there was a lack of support and education. Sometimes there was an exact opposite teaching that we're now getting to unravel for ourselves. And I know for my experience, I started hormonal birth control almost immediately after getting my period and was on hormonal birth control for over 10 years. And during that time, never thought once about my cycle and was just taught, actively taught by everything and everyone around me that my cycle was an inconvenience, that modern medicine was able to make it better and easier and more comfortable. And it wasn't until I was interested in having children that I kind of was forced to reconnect with my cycle. And that's the story of lots of clients I work with, since I work deeply in the motherhood space. But whether or not you want your body to grow a baby right now, there is an awakening in a lot of adults who for the first time are feeling this craving of reconnection and like wanting to understand ourselves, right? Like this key part of our biology and our energy. And we're having to actively work against the lessons that we were taught growing up. And it's so complex. So knowing where to start can be really overwhelming. It can be a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah. Do
You
you?
can't do it all at once.
We
You really
can't. We really can't. And I'm curious for you, well, tell me if this is accurate for you. It sounds to me based on your experience that you really connected to cycle work from like a lunar perspective, or like bigger external cycles, and then brought that wisdom down into your body. Was that sort of your path?
Yeah, so I'm not a mom. I don't have kids. That wasn't my initiation into my body, and it's such a beautiful initiation, and like one day maybe. But for me, I really came from a very repressed background. So we actually didn't talk about these things. Like the female body was gross and sinful and shameful. And yes, you bleed, and yes, your body changes, and men will start to notice, and that's your fault, and you really need to like conceal and manage, so there was a lot of like repression around that. And when I left that church and I left that way of being, I went on a whole reclamation of like, who am I? Where's my body? So there was a lot of disembodiment for me that I had to really work through. And this is also the people that I work with, right? So these people who come to me are not necessarily connected to their body, and they are learning how to be safe in their body again. And for me, the moon was really how I tracked my emotions, how I tracked what I was eating, how I tracked the things that were happening to me, because I was noticing I was having a lot of anxiety or pain or frustration. And I was like, what is the root cause of this? And just by following the moon and diving into that in the seasons, I started to come more into, oh, well, why wouldn't this apply to my cycle? And so I started doing that in rhythm with the moon. And then I kind of switched altogether and just started focusing on my cycle first and incorporating the outer cycles as a way to balance that energy within. But there's like many ways to go in and through, and the invitation is really just to connect with what's easiest right now,
Yeah.
because you will get to the body. It's all about just understanding what's going on at a deeper internal level. This is so Pisces. Like, I am laughing so hard right now. This is all about bringing up the unconscious, the subconscious, the depths, the hidden truths.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right on track.
right on track.
On track. Well, that's really what I feel called to share with everyone. If it does feel overwhelming, to really dig into the layers of cycle syncing that we're talking about here, really notice where you feel called to start and just start there. Start with one singular focus. And for Kayla, that was the moon as an anchor point, and that was to start and got to ripple out. For me, it was my menstrual cycle, and then over years and years got to ripple out into greater seasonal and lunar cycles. So there's no right way to do it. And often we feel called to start on an internal level or start with the external support, but just start with one. Don't feel like you have to interweave all these layers at the beginning. That is something that gets to come with time and experimentation, and there's no hurry.
It's joy. It's supposed to be joyful.
It
So it's not,
really is so fun.
this isn't like a class, and it's not supposed to be like, I need to figure out like the cycle of the moon and the cycle of my body, and like when my hormones peak and when they drop.
Yeah.
Like, it's not meant to be stressful and linear. This is another thing, is when we do cycle syncing, we are actually reclaiming and even giving voice to the more receptive, intuitive, feminine, if you will, aspect parts of ourselves. And so we're actually trying to come to this work as if it's not work. It's really an embodiment. It's a way to live and interact with your day-to-day life, your like physical breath, your physical cycle, and to enjoy it where it's at and not need to fix it. So a lot of people will come to me and be like, I want to have this kind of cycle, or I have all this pain and I want to fix this. And I'm like, your cycle is perfect where it is because it's a direct reflection of who you are right now. And to work with that in love is going to take you farther than working with it from a lens point of I have to fix myself. There's something wrong with me. So there's just an invitation here to kind of drop that really big part of ourselves that is wanting to just know it all and to study and to be the Hermione Granger of, our bodies, and to really step into some embodiment and some trust and some receptivity and just let the cycle kind of unfold within and around you.
Yeah. Gosh, I think awareness is like the greatest gift we get out of this work. And I think back to when I first started seeking understanding and connection to my cycles. And I felt like someone had handed me this like Rosetta Stone code, unlock. And suddenly I could like speak this language and get this new understanding that I never had before. And it's really funny now I get to reflect that back to folks in my life. My friends will come to me and be like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. And I'm like, well, what day of your cycle are you on, babe? And always it gives some insight. And there's just this sort of lessening of exactly what you're saying. There's this allowing of like the way I feel is not a problem to fix. It is a reflection of the natural ebbs and flows of my energy and cycles. And rather than fight against it or fight for consistency, we get to just understand it and honor it. So that's just really beautiful and really important.
I agree.
So sometimes it feels overwhelming, really complex. Sometimes there's very old conditioning patterns that we have to unravel that can be really, really just challenging and messy and long kind of work to do around our connection with our bodies. Another one that I see is the really just the sort of pace of most of our lives. And I find what many people hear when they start working with their cycles, they hear from their bodies, we need to slow down. And there are phases of our cycles that are not necessarily slow, right? It's not like your whole cycle is slow, but that is typically the biggest gap in our modern lives, that we're not honoring the slower pace and we're trying to push and strive and be in this overdrive state all of the time. So then when we're invited into slowing down, all of these stories come up around like, I have too much to do. I can't do that. My job doesn't allow that. My kids don't allow that. Like if I slow down, everything will fall apart. That's the feeling that comes up. Have you ever moved through those sorts of stories, or what would you say to someone moving through that?
Yes, I move through those stories almost every cycle. Sometimes it's subtle because it's something I've been cycling on for many months. And other times it's more loud because it's a new thing I've discovered, a new insight that I've had. But it's so part of the process. And there is a point in our cycle where that is useful. That those thoughts that you have are directly associated with the hormones going on in your body and how your body is saying, we need to change or shift this thing in order to be in more harmony. So like, it is hard and it is frustrating sometimes and it is demoralizing even. And it can feel really overwhelming at times, but it is part of the process. And if you can honor it, even like half a degree, like just one way, just give yourself 5 minutes instead of like 5 days. You will start to see how that area softens or those thoughts soften. and you don't actually have to like force it. You can just kind of create, it's like opening a door, right? You can either open the door wide and create all the space you want, and like that can be intense, or you can crack it open and like just allow some air, some movement to come in, right? So you get to kind of choose what your nervous system can take and what your body can take in this specific cycle. Some days, some cycles, we're not grounded enough to really confront the big questions that are often existential, like sitting at the depths of our cycle, just saying, wake up, you know? So, really being mindful of what you actually have capacity for and being okay with that and trusting that this problem will come back again in another phase or even in another cycle down the road. So there's no pressure, there's no force, there's no rush. You will be doing this for lifetimes.
Yeah. And in fact, sometimes I think we apply the very principles that we're working to rewrite, we apply them to our cycle work. This idea of like consistency and perfection and like working harder at it are
Yeah,
some of the things we're working to heal. And sometimes they get all wrapped up in how we look back and see alignment or not with our phases of our cycle. So just big permissioning to like, yeah, take it slow. Exactly as you just said.
and resource yourself. Like your nervous system is what matters. And when you start cycle syncing, especially for, I know for the women that I work with, a lot of people are dissociated. So it's hard to come into the body, which means they're confronting anxiety, frustration, fear, terror, like levels of non safety. And that takes a lot of time to just grow your capacity to be with, right? Because these are emotions that you have to sit with in order to transform them. So there's no pressure to open the valve all the way and be like, I'm going to feel all of my feelings and transform this all in this cycle. It's really just a slow process of letting the cycle change you and letting it affect how you show up in your day-to-day life, even if it's to like 1 degree.
Ah, yes. And there is this idea, if we're talking about I'm too busy or, there's too much going on to slow down, there is this idea, and this has been well studied in like productivity books and in habit building books of slowing down to speed up. This is a principle of actually getting to accomplish more with less energy expended when we move at a more natural pace, because the human brain does not function well on cortisol and the human brain does not function well on exhaustion. And we all know this, right? Like you can think of a time when you were stressed and overwhelmed and you like couldn't actually get your thoughts together. You couldn't the work task that was supposed to take you like 20 minutes took 2 hours because you couldn't focus because you were dysregulated. Like we've all been there. And it's really powerful to view the resourcing actually as part of the sort of productivity process, right? Like if the what you're holding in your life, if it feels like like that is the priority right now, like I can't drop it all to focus on my body, I invite you just to view it from this angle of like focusing on these cycles allows you to hold more because you're not getting into a place of depletion, of overwhelm, of dysregulation, and of burnout, which slows everything down. So it feels counterintuitive because of the way we've all been conditioned and the way our society is set up, but it actually is just truth. It really is the way that we were designed to
Yeah.
move through creation processes.
Yeah, and there's two things I want to like name here. As you were speaking, I really kept seeing the image of the yin and yang symbol flash in my mind. And there's a little bit of the yin in the yang and the yang in the yin, right? So even if you do feel like I'm in this phase of my life where everything is just so much and I have so much responsibility, I have so much to do, it's like that's fine, but you still need to incorporate that small dot of, slowing down because in time that dot will grow and then you'll be in a more yin phase where you will then pour some of that productivity and you'll just oscillate between this. So it's never about finding the perfect way to be. Like, we are cyclical beings. That is the truth of this work. And you will find that there's never an end point. You're just gently balancing. And right now, if you're new to cycle work, you're actually balancing between extremes. So what you're going to find is you're going to swing this way and you're going to swing right back this way. But it's always a little bit shorter than the last time. And you will eventually feel more capacity and ability to like tweak and take time and really understand it in a way that doesn't feel so catastrophic, maybe.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
and that is, which leads me to my second point, like that's the initiation, that's the invitation, that's the challenge of cycle work. It really is challenging you to take responsibility for the places in your life where you're not fully healthy, where you're not fully relaxed, where you're not fully showing up for yourself, where you don't have full energetic levels. And it literally pushes and presses on the spaces in your life that need to shift. And they're likely the places that you're most identified with. And so it's going to bring up so much of your limiting stories, your childhood wounds, your beliefs about I can't. Like, it is in direct opposition to these things, and it's asking you to reconcile the extreme. It's a lot. It can be a lot.
It's a lot. Okay, so what I'm hearing is if we're in the place of I'm too busy, I'm holding too much, I can't create the space to cycle sync or to slow down the way my body is asking me to. What I heard you say was start super small, crack the door open just a little bit if that's what you have capacity for. Remember this principle of doing less to do more, slowing down to speed up, and really honoring the pendulum swings and the gradual, like the journey that we're on in sort of micro ways. And the last thing I really feel called to add sort of applies to all of these challenges, but especially thinking back to the one you shared around um, feeling a lot of disembodiment and even shame and um, just all of the conditioning we get around our body and our cycles. And that is community. I really think
Mhm.
as we move deeper, I think any work that we move through, but especially cycle work, as we connect in with the cycles of our earth, of our bodies, it is incredibly powerful deconditioning medicine to be in like-minded community. It really reinforces for our human brains that we're not crazy, that we're not alone, and that what we're trying to convince ourselves is true is actually true. Like it's one thing to tell yourself, my bleed is beautiful and my cycle is sacred. But if all you have is constant conditioning from when you were 13 and you had to like hide a tampon in your sleeve at school because you didn't want anyone to see that you were on your period, right? Like we have all these patterns and no other reinforcements, that self-talk can sometimes it can still feel like we're stuck in the same loop of actual behavior and embodiment. So community reflection is so powerful, whether that's in lunar living with other women moving through this work, whether that's in a women's circle that meets every month, but having a space with other folks who are doing this work, curious about their cycles, really like actively connecting to themselves and to their rhythms and treating their bodies as the sacred cycle that it is really powerful to do.
Yeah, I would agree. And community is really, really powerful in that it is a direct mirror. You are a mirror to those in the community, and they are a mirror to you. And no one person in that community will be the same. There will be people who are new beginners who will show and add depth and nuance to the people who have been cycle syncing for like years. And the people who have been cycle syncing for years will be like little touch points and reminders that like if the beginner can just relax and listen to the easy steps forward, they'll eventually be there. And that it will also, there's this beautiful reflection that happens in community where it kind of starts to decondition that, like, I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing it fast enough. I'm like not getting it, because you'll really see how even at your phase, whether it's in your mind less than or more than or better than or all of that, you will see how it has direct influence on the people around you, no matter what phase you're at. And that's super powerful because that's a direct truth about how powerful this work really is and what it's inviting you to really deepen into, which is just you, your body coming into this moment and being with you as you are.
Mm, so good. So good. So I would love to leave folks with something tangible to start playing with because we felt the Pisces pull into the depths of the
Yep.
subconscious and everything that's going on. So for all of our beautiful souls listening who are resonating, who are craving more connection to the cycle or craving more alignment in their energy, connection to that vibrancy, that life force energy we talked about last episode. We were talking, we talk often in the Lunar Living Program about the power of tracking and just really being tuned into where we are in the cycle. So, where would you recommend someone start if that reconnection is a priority of theirs?
It's pretty simple. It's just starting with tracking. I actually, when we were having this conversation, I had another practice kind of come into my mind, and I think it's very Pisces oriented. So I'm gonna get to that later. That's like an embodiment practice that I really think can deepen. But I really think tracking your cycle is where to begin. So you may not even know what day you're on, and that's totally perfect. My invitation is to download a period tracking app to like help you start just naming the days. But if you don't want to do that and you're just like, I don't know where I'm starting, just write one, even though one is not like where one is typically where you're bleeding. But just write one and say, I'm starting cycle syncing today. I have no idea where I'm at. And I'm just gonna keep doing this every day until I bleed. And then when you bleed, change the number back to one, and that's where you'll start your cycle. And then you'll just do that every month and take some notes, like very minimal notes on what is your emotion? Do you have any symptoms? Do you have acne? Are you bloated? Are you angry? Are you feeling stressed? Did you have a fight with your partner? Like anything that is coming up for you to see. This is kind of what it looks like. I keep it all on one page so that I can see my whole cycle in like one nice day, right? And then I usually do some integration notes on the back, and then I start again, right? A whole cycle. Integration notes on the back, places I can celebrate myself, and then once again, just starting again. So as you can see, I'm on day 21. But
Beautiful. That's so helpful to see. And I'll
yeah.
share, if you're watching the video version of this, you'll be able to see on our screen here. Mine
Yeah.
typically is in my journal, and then with clients, I use this digital version. And so, similar to what Kayla's saying, having it all on one page is helpful. And then, even just tracking something as simple as where is my energy today, 1 to 10? Where is my kind of overwhelm level, 1 to 10? And then any notes, just as Kayla said. Where is my sexual energy feeling? Am I so irritated with everyone? Do I have no motivation? Did I just want to be outside all day? Like any notes that feel helpful. I got a headache, sweets cravings, taking notes. And after 2 or 3 cycles, you'll really start to see some patterns emerging. So without changing anything, without putting pressure on yourself to change anything, this
Yeah.
daily awareness is an incredible practice of honoring your body and just learning, getting the Rosetta Stone for yourself, getting the decoding process to really understand what's happening.
Yeah, and you'll start to see some patterns like when I completed my first round for this year, I noticed that I missed a couple days of tracking, right? And I was like, oh, I wonder what was going on then. And I also noticed like during my follicular and my ovulation that there was a lot of like overwhelm and overstimulation. And when I was recording like my overview on the back, I was just like, oh, I'm curious about that. Like, what can I do in this next cycle to really mitigate that overwhelm? Because it's very clear that I was feeling overwhelmed in those couple of days. And then as I tracked the next cycle, every day I would write day one, I would write what I was feeling, and then I would go back just a page and see how I was feeling that day. And sometimes they are like the exact same, and sometimes there's growth, and sometimes there's even a little bit of setback. And it's just a way to be aware of like, what am I working on and how can I bring curiosity to this? It's not about fixing myself. It's about honoring what is real in my body and then taking the time in my day to take care of that, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, and just honoring what's there.
Yeah.
You will see patterns and you will see them change, and it is a really wonderful practice.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one place to start. And then where else do you want people to start?
Yeah,
Pisces pulling out for you.
yeah, Pisces is really pulling out that and this might be because she's activating some Lilith transits in a lot of people's charts. And Lilith is all about reclaiming our body, our femininity, our sexuality, our sensuality. And that is directly in line with our womb, right? That is where our power really lies a lot of the time. So my invitation, this is like a very deep embodiment invitation, is to get really connected to your blood. Maybe use a menstrual cup this next cycle and really notice the color and kind of notice the thoughts that come up when you look at your blood. Like, does it gross you out? Do you have disgust? Like, what's that all about? Or does it make you kind of like excited? And people paint with their blood and do a bunch of really cool things with their blood. So my invitation is just to kind of connect with it on like a very visceral, tangible level and just see what kind of things begin to stir in your emotionality over the next month.
Mhm.
Um, because your blood really is part of you and it's not something to hate or to think is gross. And I know for me, when I first started doing that practice, there was some disgust. I was just like, what is this?
What better way to shine a light on the deconditioning work available to you than to
Yeah,
really
and
get dirty with it, with yourself, like, get messy, get your hands in it.
yeah, like planting a garden, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And on that note, that is my favorite thing to do with my blood is to pour it back into my garden and my earth. Um, there
Yeah.
are some benefits. Your menstrual blood is very rich in nutrients and stem cells. It's the blood of life. It really is. So, if from a purely biological, practical standpoint, you can offer nutrients back to your plants by using a menstrual cup and then pouring it out into the earth. And from an energetic connection standpoint, you are connecting your womb, the space of life, back to the earth, which holds all of our life. And that's a really beautiful cycle to complete as well. So I love this. We are going to invite all of you to start tracking and building some awareness if that feels supportive for you, and to really start connecting viscerally with your eyes, with your hands, with your all of your senses, with the blood that your body is shedding and sharing, and seeing what comes up from that. That's really powerful.
Yeah, it is. And that can be just very subtle, you know. Deconditioning work doesn't have to be like I have to untangle the story and analyze it. It can really just be about witnessing your feelings and letting the feelings move through you
Yeah.
and setting it down,
Mhm.
letting the work integrate. So this was such a magical conversation.
So,
Um, I feel a lot of energy, a lot of vitality, and I just really hope that we did touch on a lot of things. So I really hope that the audience, the listener, is really feeling that energetic pull upward to get curious and not to be overwhelmed, to start small and to just start where you are at, to start with what sounds fun instead of what your mind wants you to like get correct. So
yeah. So
it's really
Yeah, and we'll share a few resources in the show notes of this episode, ways to connect in with Kayla's beautiful moon circles, with additional cycle syncing resources. And if you do want to be held in a community, in a container where we move through an entire lunar cycle and menstrual cycle, really diving deep into this energy and medicine, that's what Lunar Living is made for. And we'll leave a link for you just to learn more and get curious about all of that. Kayla, anything else on your heart you want to share?
Just endless gratitude for you, Martina, and for this space and for this community and um, offering that we have out in the world. I think it's so beautiful and it sparks so much joy inside of me.
Mm.
And I just really love sitting and connecting and talking about these things with you.
Gosh,
I
me
feel like
too.
I'm here forever and just
Yeah,
endlessly talk to you if I didn't have responsibilities.
it's so good. I feel the same. And I always feel like if even just one person feels sparked or inspired or curious um, after connecting into these spaces, it's 1,000,000% worth it just to connect with that one person. So if you're that one soul listening, thanks for being here. That one soul feeling inspired, thanks for being here.
We feel you, and
We feel you.
I hope you feel us. It's all coming from the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And we just really feel so grateful and honored to share our experiences with this medicine because it's something we really believe everyone deserves access to. And everyone, it is a birthright of ours to live in this connective, embodied space. And our cycles really do hold the keys to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it just it's just something that we should all have access to. I have grown so much in my life because I have started to do this over years and years and years. And I have so much more freedom and capacity and just energetic balance to my life. And I really see people struggle with that in the world. And I just want to be like, here's
Yeah.
like, just have this.
Well, that's what this is for. That's what Lunar Living is for and the cycle codes. So check out the show notes, get yourself some resources, some support, some connection, and we will connect in with you again shortly. Until we talk again, take beautiful care of yourself.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.